Yeah, and then there'll be two more pieces, but I can do those separate. So if you want to look at these, go ahead. I'm just trying to get them to you in order so that we're not all shuffling.
We're gonna be all shuffling. Right on the, with a big magic mark on the front
He's
one.
so cheerful. I think I did give up one too many because I usually have three. Somebody's got one too many.
When that's gonna be now.
Mine won't be, I never.
Alan, yeah, Alan will be here. I think it was just Gwen that can't make it.
Oh, no. Yep.
You did, thank you, sir.
Now I need that whole pack. I don't. I didn't bring me. Again,
Well, it's budget.
That's yours.
oh,
This is Gwen's.
Steve, I have a
Hey,
trivia
Brandon, Susan.
game tonight at 6.
Oh, they just dropped off their little boy at school and they were
I'll
getting
see if I can let make sure we're done by then.
like a little one.
3:30.
Yeah.
That's much better.
Yeah, she's cute.
We're all so fast. Thank you.
I mean, how can you be?
Thank you. It's much easier for me to follow along when I have something
Yeah.
in my hot little hand.
It's 1 o'clock.
I see it.
I get two or there's two separate ones? Okay.
Are you gonna be here?
No.
You We got all this. Boy.
I do.
Identical ones.
What's the difference between these two?
Yeah.
You gave me two identical ones.
Which one?
Oh, that's,
And this is part L.
Okay.
And that one is just right. So that one totals this number.
thank you.
Oh, there it is.
First. There we go. Thank you. Thank you.
I don't know if we're live.
Thank you.
Are we live? Yep, I'm ready.
All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And for the pledge, on Ramona Sounds.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Make sure everybody's microphones turned on, and we'll go ahead with the roll call.
Commissioner Robbins?
Here.
Commissioner Walter?
Here.
Commissioner Bunnick?
Here.
Commissioner Wessel?
Here.
Commissioner Campbell is absent. Commissioner Algier is absent. Chairman Yoder.
Here. All right, thank you. All right, next up, we have approval of the agenda. Additions or deletions, we got a motion.
I'd like to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, moved and supported, discussion. Not all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Next up, we have public comment. Any public comment? Next up, we have commissioner comments. Nothing. All right. First up, we got our action item number 1. We got our prosecutor here from the prosecutor's office. You're up.
Thank you. Sit next to me. Oh, let's see if I can get this chair out. I guess I'm number 2, he's number 1. I am gonna have an opening beginning of next year. And I have a candidate whom I believe would be a great fit. What I'm asking the board to approve is to allow me to increase my salary posting from 83,100, it's in the to 90,000. And I think I can do that without going over my budget. I've looked at my budgets in the past. I've never been over budget. I think there are some strategic things I could do in my budget to make this work. And this is really what I need. I need to be able to fill this position with a qualified candidate. The gentleman sitting next to me is Dan Short. He came up from Muskegon County, went over to Kalkaska County, and now has been with us for 2 years. He is what you would call a career prosecutor. It's somebody that really wants to do this job, is not looking at it as a stepping stone for something else. And these are people we need to attract to work in my office and in this community. The candidate I'm proposing is the same. I believe this person would make a long-term commitment to work in this county. And the advantage is this person already lives in the area. So they know what the cost of living is. They know what it's going to take. And I believe the increase that I'm requesting is reasonable and it is really going to benefit the county. I mean, for 20 years, I've been I've been cognizant of costs and everything else, but I've also come to believe that people expect a certain level of service and professionalism. And we just gonna have to come to grips with the reality that in order to get people, particularly people that are dedicated to this type of public service, that we pay them a living wage. And that's what I'm asking the board to do. I'm not asking for anything dramatic except coming to before you and say, I need to have the salary bumped up to 90,000. And I think it's within my budget and I think I can make it work.
Money?
And I was wondering, when you quote that amount, does that include the 3% raise that's planned, or is that last year's?
What I did, Commissioner Bunnick, is I went to our human resources, and they gave me the amount that is for next, that's in the budget. So I don't know if what I'm proposing includes the 3% for 2026. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Joe. Okay, thank you. Just ask her.
Yeah, the annual salary right now is 81,430.49, and the 3% bumps it to the 83,873.40.
Okay, you're right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, if I remember, I thought you asked for a raise so that one of your attorneys could move into Leelanau County.
Well, actually, go ahead.
And I'm just wondering if that ever really happened.
I don't know if I asked for a raise so one would move to Leelanau County. I asked for a raise so someone would come and work for Leelanau County, and that someone is sitting right next to me. The reason that person, and I don't want to make it about him, but yes, I asked for a raise so I could fill the position that was made vacant 2 years ago when my chief assistant, Doug Donaldson, retired after 20 years, well, probably 18 years of service.
So that did happen, correct?
I asked the board to raise the salary so I could attract a qualified candidate, and it did happen, and he happens to be sitting right next to me.
But that isn't enough anymore, is what you're saying?
I don't know. It isn't. It isn't with student loans, with cost of living, with everything else. My son last week went to grocery shopping last week and he spent, this week, and he spent $600 on groceries. I mean, that's what we're dealing with. It's the reality of it. And I would just add as a side note, I've never come before the board and asked for my salary to be increased. I'm just trying to fill the position so we have good candidates and we have good service for the county. But I understand, it's, where do we get it from? I'm just telling you, I'm not telling you, I firmly believe that within my budget this year, I can make this work. And I'm asking that happen.
Well, I mean, I guess my point is we just negotiated contracts and in good faith, I believe, and gave a good 3%, actually 11%, 3, 6, or 10% over the next 3 years. So
is that union contracts?
They are, yes.
This is a non-union position.
Correct. So, but I mean, what we give to them, that we really try to give to everyone else. Now, if we go over above that, then I believe that we're not negotiating in good faith. If we're holding them down in finding money to give to other people, we're saying to them that we're not dealing with them in good faith. And we still have a contract that's due with the deputies here. And if we go over those amounts, then we have this Me Too clause. So it's going to affect everybody here.
I get it. But when we have And I don't want to name names, but I'm just saying, we're always gonna be faced with that. We have an administrator job open. And, or a commissioner wants to run. I mean, we're all constrained by what the guardrails are. I'm sure you had to negotiate a salary with, our new maintenance guy. You had to negotiate a salary with other people. Those are non-union positions, and you were able to attract those people because of the offer you made. I'm just saying, if we want to attract qualified people to fill this position, we're gonna have to raise the salary. But Mr. Bonick, I appreciate what you're saying, and I get it. But I'm still here.
I know,
And then Commissioner Robbins?
For you commissioners, I did give you a handout on this position to read. A while back, I've done my research throughout the state with prosecutors, and the problem we're having is statewide is we got the graduates coming out of law school, and they get jobs starting out with 1 30 years of experience. We're looking at 90,000 there. And now, plus, Prosecutor Hubble's also, he's doing us a favor. He's not asking for more money, he's gonna adjust it with his own budget. And so that's a big plus there. This has been a problem that I've seen in this building here for about 4 years. We're all over the board with people coming here wanting wages and this, and at the end of the day, just remember, we look like a bunch of red squirrels chasing nuts. We don't even know what side of the street we put nuts on because we're giving raises here and here. And so we gotta, for you, Mr. Hubble, I would say, as a commissioner, I would ask you, I wish you would be more proactive and look down the road and see, maybe come before us before budget, say, hey, this is the issue. And not just you, I'm not picking on you, I'm picking on every department.
But, yeah, and I agree, but part of it is you think this is a living salary and you get,
Right.
and then you hear back that this isn't enough.
Right.
So,
No, what I mean is I wish you, to all the department heads and elected heads would look and say, hey, over the years, I think it's a little bit of inflation's gotten out of control. And some of it's just over the years, we've had commissioners say that our employees should feel lucky to work here, and we didn't give them raises. That hasn't helped. We always talk about housing, and we put so much emphasis on housing. I think that we need to not put that on the table, but I think we need to concentrate on our employees and make it affordable to work here, not live in our county, but to work here. And let them have the choice of where they want to live. So I'm gonna back you. I'm just asking down the road, I wish as a board and you as elected that we all can start working together and maybe get this problem under control.
agreed. I understand what you're saying, Commissioner, thank you.
Bill?
I think a lot of the angst, if not mostly angst has to do with some for information about what our healthcare costs are going to be. And honestly, it's got us. I think we're kind of a little set back by that.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to make all ends meet without going back on some, I guess, promises or some budgeting items that we've already approved. For me, I know that's top of my list. And I appreciate your livable wage and such as that. I'm not sure if it totally appropriate if it makes as much of an impact at this level as opposed to folks that we're hiring for much less. My question is, how does this wage compare with other counties?
Well, Lake County, for example, has an opening for their elected prosecutor. In that county, which is a less population than mine, is being offered for a salary more than mine. Across the board, if you look at what the salaries are being offered, this is within the framework. I mean, and depending on experience, I mean, that's part of it too. Somebody that's just out of law school shouldn't command a higher salary than I'm asking for this particular person that has experience. I mean, this is somebody that can walk right in the job, take over cases that my exiting prosecutor has. It'll be a nice, smooth transition. As for healthcare, this particular person, the person that they're replacing in my office is married with children. This person is not married and has one child. So their healthcare cost is going to be a little lower for the county. But I get it. I get it. My point is this: I think I can make this work within my budget. And I'm asking you to approve it. And I understand what the fears are, the media. What about me? What about me? I'm just asking you to look at my situation and to realize that there are I want to say over 25 job postings for prosecutors across the state. The oldest one is from May of 2025, and some of them have just dropped off because they just gave up looking. I have a board of directors meeting this Friday down in Lansing, and one of the topics is we're losing people. We can't retain the people we have. And so again, after a while, it's going to affect the level of service. And that's what I don't want to see happen. I've been in this job for 20 years. I like the job. I made a choice to be here, but I also see in the future that people are going to have to choose, can I make things work or not? And even if no matter how much you love your job, if it's not going to work financially, you can't do it. And that becomes a tipping point, I think, for a lot of these positions, and mine in particular, because I have to go out and hire professionals. I have to go hire people that have law degrees, that went through 7 years of college, that passed the bar, and they also may have $150,000 of student loans, which didn't factor in 20 years ago. So a lot of stuff has changed. And I'm just here to explain why I need your help. And I think or your approval, I should say. And I think it's within my budget, and I think it could be done. Pardon me, my son.
So does the prosecution rest?
Yeah. But I get it, I get it. And frankly, I wish I would have foreseen this and been here this summer and said, you know what, folks, this is what I need. I put you in a kind of a bad position because you've already approved my budget, but that's why I'm saying I think I can do this without screwing my budget up.
Mr. Walter?
Well, two things. One, it is budget neutral. And, as you say, if you're gonna do it within your budget, so that's not a big issue. The second issue with the Me Too issue, or we giving other people raises, is this is a professional position. And not to say that everybody else is a professional, but I was a lieutenant for 30 years with the department, with the State Department. And I was a non-professional supervisor because I didn't have to have a degree to have my job. And the professional supervisors that had to have a degree had a different step, and they lived in a different zone. And we're not comparing apples to apples by bringing that up. So I mean, it's budget neutral. It's a position that requires, the degree and the experience and that. So I can understand that totally, and it should be neutral to any other positions in the county.
Thank you.
Mr. Russell?
Yeah, I'm similar to what Mark just said. I wish we didn't have to do this position by position, but clearly this is a training degree requirement that most of our other elected officials and positions don't include. And we also have to give consideration for the market. And for those two reasons, I would like to support the prosecutor's question.
Thank you.
Mr. Robbins?
I'd like to add just one more thing. as a board, what we really need to look at here is the future, not just what's going on today and what's been going on. I think Prosecutor Hubble is preparing his department for the future. I believe that this candidate that he's looking at is more than qualified, and I'm gonna not go much further than that, but if we don't take the opportunity to vote on this and help out Prosecutor Hubble, I think we're gonna pay as a county down the road, because someday he is going to be leaving. And all he's trying to do is build a team, so when he leaves, it's in better shape than when he got it. So he's just, I'm gonna support it, and
Thank you. I couldn't have said it better.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
And I think that Prosecutor Hubble has really done his work here to try to find the right person for our county.
All right, well, I will echo those sentiments, and I appreciate you doing it cost neutral. That's a huge statement, and I agree with Commissioner Walter and Commissioner Wessel with a lot of their comments, and the fact that the job that's required isn't necessarily what you see every day. So I understand your sentiment here, and I would support it as well. Commissioner Bunny?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I appreciate it too, but I do think that this undermines this board and what they've negotiated with the union contracts. I think it is micromanaging when every individual comes as an individual before, and we're setting it up so that we're gonna continue this. We did this with the secretary at the law enforcement center, you know, and you know, we've done it with just the probate employees, and now we're doing it here. And I think that this board is undermining its own, it's actually undermining the faith of the people that they have in us, that when we're gonna second guess every decision that we've negotiated because we're talking about an individual. And I think this is micromanaging, and I think we should not be doing this. So I will vote no on this.
Somebody wants to make a motion, or how do we, is there a motion written out for this?
You just have to say if you have consensus to make the change presented.
I move we make the change presented by the prosecutor.
Alright, so moved, supported, discussion? Not?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what this is gonna cost as far as health insurance, as far as social security, as far as Medicare. We know what the salary will be, but we don't know the full cost and if that's really gonna fit within his budget. We get one number, but it doesn't include all the other ones that are gonna be there.
If I might just ask you, you said budget neutral, where did you find that money in your budget?
Well, let's see.
Is that part of the?
Yeah, I looked at our extradition. I looked at our, I laid it out as an attachment. We're charged of, like, for example, a lien history fee from MSP, which is never assessed. That there's a membership, some subscriptions we're getting rid of. We knocked down our travel and some other things that I looked at our budget historically, and even though I always want to ask for it in case what happens, I do feel like I can fit it within this budget. And I appreciate your comments, and I understand your comments as well, Mr. Bonick, and I appreciate them. They're
I appreciate you.
and I appreciate you. I'll give you a hug afterwards.
I think we can do it right now.
Any other discussions? Right, not all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carried 5-1.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prosecutor.
I appreciate all you guys. Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your help. Thank you, everybody. And thank you.
Thank you.
No hug there?
No hugs, no PDAs.
Again, thank you.
Yeah, all right, next up, we have our 2026 budget walkthrough, our finance director here. Walk us through what we got.
I think I might have given one of you one too many handouts, so we'll figure that out in a
The
moment.
appropriation resolution, I have two.
No, it's the Harris produced documents, so. Um, where would you like to start, Mr. Dyer?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean,
Um,
I-
What we intended to do here today was to walk you through all that we've made numerous changes to the pro forma budget that was presented to you back in June, as I recall. Numerous changes throughout the course of all of the budget work sessions that we've had. What Kathy has done, just a ton of work in the last week or so, really on two projects that we both helped each other on, I would say. The first was to add all those things together, so it's in one document. What we're actually presenting to you today and what you'll actually approve when the time comes is this first document that has the pie charts at the bottom. That is a functional summary of the budget that breaks down the revenue from the various sources of where it comes from and the appropriations to the various sources that it goes to. It shows general funds, special revenue funds, debt obligations, a capital improvement fund, and the various enterprise funds that we have. And it puts them all into context. Again, breaking them by functional categories rather than by departments. Legislative, public safety, justice, public records, human services, resource management, internal services, and then a contingency. So this is the kind of the budget summary. If you recall back when we had our professor from Northwestern, our retired professor from Northwestern, this is one of the things that she recommended we do. So you can take the documents that, the additional documents that you're going to see that are all of these proposed to adopt that come from the Harris software. It helps make a summarized sense of all of those documents. So that'll be the first document. Then you also have with these documents, what we presented is first a general fund amount with both revenues and expenditures attached. Then the second major document, which has 11 pages, is the proposal for all of the special funds that we have. And then the final document that's in draft form, this one that has a bunch of highlighting in yellow. This is a summary of all the changes that you made during the budget work sessions. For example, adding the contractual grant writer for under Board of Commissioners and under Parks and Rec. The various capital projects, the allocation in part of the opioid settlement to Leelanau County Family Coordinating Council. The various purchases under information technology that you approved. This is kind of a summary document that has all of those listed, so you can review them in one location rather than reading through each of the budget line items. And what you're actually going to be asked to approve when we get the budget is finally brought together on the 18th of November are the appropriations that you're making to the various funds and departments, appropriations of revenue and the expenditures that you're approving. And in a document that Commissioner Bunnick sent me, he asked a question, what's the difference between an appropriation and an allocation under the Uniform Budgeting Act? And the best way that I can describe that, and there have been some talk about micromanaging. And during the course of our budget work sessions, we've talked about whether or not we should allocate a certain amount of money to a function and then allow the administration to decide how that is spent. And that's basically the difference between an appropriation and an allocation under the Uniform Budgeting Act. An appropriation would be, if you look at just the first page of what we get from Harris, you say under the general fund, there's an appropriation to the Board of Commissioners Department total, where we appropriated $927,631 is the suggested appropriation for that function. But when you get that big budget book that you got back in June, all of those are broken down into individual line items that when they get aggregated up, go into that appropriation. The individual line items are the allocations. Those are the individual line items. Those are the allocations within that budget line item. I don't know if that makes sense. Or do you have any questions about that? You're not actually approving the allocations. You're approving the appropriations to that budget. In the past, we've approved, is this a change from how we?
No, it's not a change. It's just made more explicit. In the past, your appropriations resolutions indicated that you were approving the budget by activity designation. That's where we're doing that, making that absolutely clear that that's what you're doing.
So when there are changes in the budget, I notice changes in rules that would take a lot, I think, anyways, responsibility from the county board and transfer that to the administrator's office. Is that
No, actually not.
No.
What I'm suggesting is as a means to transition to what you haven't done in the past. You're still going to approve all budget changes, but it's giving the administration the opportunity to make allocation changes, not appropriation changes, but allocation changes up to $10,000. That would be, for example, deciding, I think the example I gave in the email that I sent to you was we would, if we need, for example, to change something from office supplies to repairs and maintenance, that would be something that we would be permitted to do. Right now, those things all do happen internally, and then you're asked at a later time to approve those in an aggregate form at a later time. We're just doing that, proposing to do that in the way that, frankly, the Uniform Budgeting Act requires it to be done.
Well, I don't think we've been breaking the law.
No, I don't want to imply that. I don't want to imply that.
But I think it's important that those changes come to this board for a couple of reasons. One, it keeps us better informed. We know where those changes are going. And the other thing is, I think it keeps our populace, our folks who want to participate, it puts it on the agenda. It allows them to understand how their county government is functioning, and it allows them to participate if they want to by providing us their thoughts and information. I think that is a positive thing for a representative democracy. And I don't want that changed. And especially now, I mean, as in I could see looking at it for a year, but until now, until the memo, we've not discussed this as a board. It's not been before us. We've had 10 meetings on budgets and never once has it come up that these types of changes in how financially this county would run, not once have they come before the board. So I would like to keep the rules the same for a year anyways. It gives you another year to settle in as opposed to being here 6 months and then proposing, I think, somewhat major changes in financially the authority of how this county runs. So those are my thoughts.
Again, I would submit, it's not really a change. It's how the county's actually been run, but it actually expressly says in your appropriations resolution that that's permitted. Again, I'm not implying a violation, because ultimately you guys always have finally approved any changes to an allocation through a change in an appropriation that comes before you. You've always done that. And you'll be continuing to do that, but the difference will be if, for example, on a number of occasions, we've had a situation where to approve a travel or an educational. What would be an example, Kathy, where we made a change there?
Out of state travel.
Out of state travel.
Washington.
Now that still requires you to approve that, but there's no change in your policy.
If I'm getting the gist of the conversation is that within a budget, let's say my department, my cartridges for my printer are exceeding what I budgeted for office supplies and I overspent. That if I've underspent in repair and maintenance, that what administrator is proposing is that reallocation between office supplies and repair and maintenance can happen if it's less than 10,000. I think you mean within each department, not cross departments.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. And as I said, we've done that in the past.
Well,
We're
we always wait. I mean, I'll prepare a proposal for you. We also don't budget by line items. So if we have something like in my department going over in office supplies, but I'm under, my bottom line is still good, we're good.
that's basically what we're saying. And done that in the past. This is a recognition that that process will continue.
I also read if the revenues don't come in as anticipated, that the administrator would be able to, I read it as unilaterally, be able to make changes to make that budget, balance.
You would ultimately have to approve that, but it would be a plan that what it says is that I could request the department that's affected or all departments that are affected to create a plan as to how that would be resolved, and then that would be presented to you. You
don't have authority to approve that?
No, that's not the intent. And if you read that provision of the appropriations resolution that way, that's not the intent. The intent is to, again, this would be an example. Let's say we budgeted $500,000 for revenue sharing.
Mm-hmm.
And we found later that the state of Michigan determined that they weren't going to give us any revenue sharing. What that provision of the budget rules would do is it would empower me to go to the departments and say, this is, you need to cut so much out of your budget because of this change. We would prepare the plan and present it to you for approval. That's the idea behind that.
So we get a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the plan.
You get a thumbs up or thumbs down approval, but again, it organizes the way that process would be dealt with.
I mean, I saw it as as pretty major changes, honestly. Uh, If, with hiring, there was changes that if revenues didn't come in and there was an opening, that process would change according to this and put authority on you to not hire someone, even though we had already included it as part of the budget.
That would be, that is something that could potentially arise, yes.
And I
Again,
just,
ultimately, you'd still have to approve that before it would be implemented.
it just seems like we're moving more towards a controller type of government as opposed to the administrator type of government, which we've had since the 1960s. And I'm reluctant to do that. I think we have a role, and commissioners have always been very active in the financial actions and changes within the county. And no offense to you, and I think you wouldn't do a job with it, but we also have a job here. And we're the ones who are closest to the people. And I take that responsibility very seriously. And if there is an emergency, I think we should be brought in before as part of the emergency, as opposed to being told the answer, whatever a month might be or whatever down the road.
Your money.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I get the sense that we're becoming your employee instead of you being our employee. You know, because you want to make the decision, then come and have us say it's okay. And, you know, so that's what I've been going through this new resolution. And, you know, like in number 2, I've got changes. I think the changes should be around 2,000 rather than 10. You know, and number 3, you know, I don't think we want exceptions to capital expenditures without them coming to us. I think, you know, on number 4, I like the monthly expenditure reports and maybe budget reports as well, like what percentage we are on our budget. Number 5, you already addressed this, but I put, what does the phrase subject to allotment permit the administrator, finance director, or treasurer to do? It's just saying that the finance director and treasurer, are they going to be involved, and to what degree, you know,
Yes.
are they going to be involved? I would specify that, because it sounds like you could decide it, they could decide it, or someone could. And it completely circumvents the, you know, the board of commissioners. You know, and that's what I wonder, you know, who's to be delegated to replace the county administrator? You say the administrator or a delegate. So can that be anybody? Can
It'd be the
anybody
finance
be a
director, it'd be
delegate?
the finance director, we could specify that, that's.
But it doesn't say that we specify it. It sounds like you could delegate it and it could happen. So, I mean, it just, then there's, and number 9 is just a simple thing. I think they put in 2024. I think it should be 2025 expenditures,
Probably.
you know, instead of
Probably my
2024.
mistake in not finding that.
You know, I just think number 10, that just sounds, all powers go to the administrator, and I thought we'd just eliminate that one. I think it needs to come before this board. And number 11, I had eliminate the phrase after unless, which just gives another exception to number 11. It just creates exceptions. So, and then in conclusion, I put, I've not been had been able to sufficiently review these suggested changes in the time allotted, because I didn't get this till Friday night.
It's not on the agenda.
Yes, it is. This is part of appropriations. This is the appropriation resolution. It's very much on, it's the first thing in our budget book, in our budget review.
You're right, it won't be on the agenda until your next meeting. That's why I wanted to give it to you as soon as possible, so you could have some comment on it today.
If
We could.
If we put it in this book, then it's part of the budget. So I'm saying, I want to keep this. This is what we're going through. So I would say, at least until we have a meeting where we can go through all of the steps, because I think there's 20 more different steps, and there's many changes. So that's why I want to have a full meeting with the Board of Commissioners, making any changes to this appropriation act. You know, because these, to me, and I think Commissioner Campbell said the same thing, these changes take away transparency and tend to eliminate the Board of Commissioners' authority. It tends to give the authority to the administrator, especially when it comes to hiring, you know, actually a lot of things for elected officials. It actually allows him to stop hiring when we have an allotment for an elected official. At least the way I've read it, and maybe I'm wrong, but
I don't think that would be the case.
well, it could be interpreted that way, I believe. So I would say that we really need to go through those changes, so I say we keep this act the same, and through the year, this next year, we can look at these changes and see if we really want to do them.
Mr. Wessel?
Well, listening to Alan and Will, I didn't have the same concerns. I assume we're going to still at every meeting approve claims and accounts,
Absolutely.
budget transfers, if we have budget transfers, amendments, and accounts payable. So we aren't losing any authority to improve how we spend our money. But there's gonna be some work done before that comes to us. And I've been coming to these meetings for 11 years, and we don't spend much time on claims and accounts reviewing. There's always one or two questions for Kathy, but the work's being done before the board meeting, and then we approve it. And I'm not alarmed by that. And increasing from up to $10,000 for the item 2, that was something we heard from the last 3 administrators. We ought to have the administrator have a little bit more ability to respond when necessary. And again, those are all going to come to us final for approval. So I don't know what accountability or transparency we're losing. I don't understand that.
In fact, I would say you're gaining some because you're actually in your appropriation resolution describing what really happens.
I don't think we're assuming that we should be assuming anything, you know, and that, you know what that has been said when you start assuming.
Well, I guess just if I may jump in here too, I read through the entire like resolution, both rules and everything, and I guess I'm a little shocked because what I read through is the opposite of what I hear from Will and Alan. So I guess I'm misunderstanding something or something misunderstood here because I read it totally different. I don't see it stripping anything away from the board, you know, but I do see it giving our administrator a little bit more authority to go out and do some things that doesn't tie this board down and possibly make these meetings a little shorter. That would be awesome if we could allow him to do a few more things, but I read that completely different.
Yeah.
As far as, you know, stripping away our authority to review some of this stuff or not allowing us to see it, that's clearly not what I read. So either I'm completely misunderstanding something or there was some confusion in reading that, because I don't read that. So, go ahead.
Well, I don't think that we need to start making shortcuts so we can make these meetings shorter. I think that we have good discussions here. I think it really is beneficial and it's makes it more transparent to the people. What's going on here when we have the discussions. If the idea is to change this so that we can make our meeting shorter, I'm totally against that.
Maybe that's a comment I shouldn't have made. That's not my intention. It was meant as a joke, but
Yeah.
I gotta be more serious in my statements.
Well, I don't think the meeting will ever be short. My thing is,
May I say, your meeting last week was about 2.5 hours, so
Yeah, well,
maybe
okay.
direct your ire elsewhere.
good one.
So that's what
But
you're
the, you know, there's two sides to the coin. And we haven't flipped it yet. And, you know, we're talking about, this is what we want to talk about at the next meeting. Right now, we're talking about the budget as proposed. That's an intricacy about how it's managed once it's in place. And that'll be taken care of at our next meeting. when we review it all, since now we'll have a week to look at it, say, okay, I see these questions that you're raising, or I still don't see these questions that you're raising. And then we'll have that discussion. But right now, we're going through the changes that we made in the actual budgets, not how the office is gonna run. And that will discussion when we do the resolution.
Well, to Commissioner Walters' point, that is not on the agenda today. That was simply something that our administrator forwarded on for us to review when it does come on the agenda to review and discuss that. Right now, what I see is a 2026 budget walkthrough that our administrator and finance director brought before us that we can walk through, make sure what they drafted for us is accurate. The resolution part, that will be on our agenda in a future meeting for us to discuss before we approve this budget. So,
Okay.
but it doesn't eliminate us to have at least a discussion on the resolution and to give our administrator some feedback as to what we would like changed, don't like, or what we like, you know, so I would like us to see, veer more back to the discussion part of the budget rather than the resolution and see, and give our administrator and finance director clarity as to what what they presented accurate with what our discussions were in the past 8 weeks.
May I just ask, is this actually a part of the budget? When we approve the budget, will that approval include these changes?
Let me answer that by saying, you must do an appropriations resolution. You could use the identical resolution that you used in the past, which I think has some problems with it. But you have to have an appropriations resolution. I drafted the one that I did with the idea that we would adopt those changes. But again, they'd be discussed in full at your next meeting, at the executive meeting, and then implemented at the meeting the following week.
My question was, is there separate votes for between the budget and the appropriate?
No, it's all done.
So it is just one vote.
It is one vote.
So it is all part of the budget.
But but we're not voting on the budget today. We're
Correct.
just walking through it. So
We are.
let's get the budget done.
Well, this is
And then
gonna be
we'll,
published. This is what we do today will be.
the
part of
budget will be
the
published,
proposed
but the
budget.
resolution.
No, the resolution will go right with it. It's all one document. That's why,
It's all
that's why it's
subject- all
important that we have a discussion today before it goes out. And I understand what you're saying as far as we get an opportunity to review claims and accounts. But the money's spent then. Someone wants to get paid. So as far as having an effect on the project, we're not having any effect on the project unless it was not done up to the specs that were provided. It's a done deal. That's my thoughts.
Is that? What's the difference between post audit and claims and accounts? Is one spent and one unspent?
Well, post audit is what is spent that's appropriate by budget rule. That would be wages, utilities, fuel, postage.
Or by
thing-
board motion.
Or by board
Right.
motion, if you give me approval. The things that are in claims are all the invoices for repair and maintenance,
Right.
things that have been done. We have the invoice, but we need okay to write the check.
I mean, that's why I asked that we have a separate meeting just to discuss the appropriations to resolution act.
Well, that's what we're saying.
You know,
Next
it's not the executive meeting, that's not a separate meeting for that. So that's why I'm asking for that, so we have a separate meeting for this before we approve changes. Because it is very important. But and what you're saying is, no, we're gonna have our executive meeting and we're gonna approve that, our whole discussion, which would make a, could be a whole meeting on its own, is what I'm saying. So
I would like that myself, because I do think they're more, that a cursory reading of them doesn't do them justice. And if they're thrown in with all the figures and things that is also extremely important, I think the importance of how we do business is lost as compared to the financial expenditures of what we have.
Well, one alternative, if you would prefer, is I could redo the Appropriations Act using the format that was used in the past, there are a couple things that are in the budget rules that should be in appropriations act instead of in the budget rules.
Say that again, I didn't quite, that should be in the Appropriations Act, that,
Right, as in fact, one thing, I'm not in a position to be able to do it before your budget meeting. The budget rules themselves should really not be, what you really should have are policies that you adopt that don't change necessarily from year to year, like your budget rules. They should be adopted as policies that guide the spending and budgeting process. Purchasing, contracting, all those policies should be in place. Now you have them primarily in your budget rules, and those potentially change from year to year. In fact, when I went looking for a policy regarding the emergency purchasing, I looked in vain until I finally went and saw the budget rules. And those things should actually be in policies that you adopt separately from your budget appropriation process. But there are a couple things that are in there that should be, like, for example, like the staffing allocations. Those should be in your budget rules, or excuse me, in your Appropriations Act. You should also have, and we haven't had a chance to get it done since we've had one very serious issue that we've had to deal with the last 2 weeks. But you should be approving your fines and permit fees as part of your budget, because they're revenue driven. And you typically you haven't been doing that, but you should be doing that as part of your Appropriations Act. One of the things we're going to do is send an email out to all of the departments to give us your all the permit fees and all that you have, so we can adopt those at the time of the budget. It's things like that.
so how would those, if you could, while you're on a roll here?
Just try it.
Yeah, how would you, how would that work? Could we approve the budget? Separate out these policies and then deal with them as a separate issue later on, or most of these policies?
Yes, the policies could, as we proceed, once we get the budget taken care of, probably early next year, start working on adopting policies that are actually now contained in the budget rules, and adopt those throughout the year, so you won't need to have budget rules. You'll only have to have the Appropriations Act next year.
Well, I would feel comfortable leaving those as B for now, and then giving it a deep dive when we have a little bit more time to digest them.
Prefer that?
I would, but I'm 1-7.
But, well, I would agree with that. Same thing with the Appropriations Act. I mean, I would agree that we can do that over the year, not do it within the last week before we approve the budget. I just think this is all happening. We've been on this for what, since July. This has been working on it, and then we get it the week that we're going to approve it, the changes. And I just think that that's not the way to do things, and we have all next year we can do it.
Is there any problem? Do you have any concerns about taking items that are now in your budget rules and just moving them word for word into the Appropriations Act? Any problem with that?
I think this isn't the time to do it. You know, again, why are we waiting till the last minute to make these kinds of changes when we've been at this for how many months? And how many meetings? We've had, what, 10 meetings for the budget? And now we're gonna do it and approve it next week? Weeks from now? I just think that it's the wrong time to start doing these. Because I think there are major changes when we start changing the Appropriations Act and the budget rules.
So the argument I'm hearing now is that you're not wanting another meeting, you're wanting to postpone it a whole year.
Well, I'm saying then we have time to do it more. If you want to have another meeting before that, before executive or between executive and that, I mean, it still seems awfully rushed to try to accomplish both the budget rules and the Appropriations Act in a week's time or a week and a half.
I don't know where everybody else is at, but I'm not a fan of kicking things down the road, and I don't feel like this is a rushing process. This is a budget that we've been working on for close to 3 months, and that's our job as commissioners to do that.
Right.
I don't think it's to sit here and say, oh, we're rushed, we're gonna push it down, kick it to next year. I think we've got a job to do, and we should do it the best that we can. And if we disagree on some of the stuff, we can disagree or modify some of the stuff, I'm fine with that, but I'm not a big fan of just kicking things down the road to fix it later. Like, we got an issue here, let's fix it, let's see where we can agree on and adopt that type of thing, go as far as we can.
I just want to make clarification. You're talking about the Budget Rules and Appropriations Act, not the budget as a whole, right?
Correct.
Okay, when you kept saying it, I just want to make sure it's separate. Thank you.
Mr. Westman?
I would prefer to have one more meeting and see how much of the proposed draft we can agree on. And if there's some issues that we want to defer until next year, we can do that. But let's see if we can get closer to where we want to be. That'd be my preference.
Problem is, we'd have to have that meeting for next Tuesday.
Problem.
Yeah, before we do it.
Why can't we go through what we have today already?
Well, really, the answer is to just separate the two. And no one's talking about doing this in a year. This budget's we're gonna be done with that here in another couple of weeks, and then the final approval, unless there's major changes. You can start on it right after.
One thing that I'd actually indicated as a goal by the end of this year was to have a planning meeting, that we would do. And maybe this is the best time for that. Maybe the thing to do would be to have the budget approved this year using essentially the same format, maybe a tweak here or there of some language, but essentially the same format as last year. And then hash out these issues that I see in a planning meeting that we schedule after we adopt the budget. I'm certainly okay with that.
Not a good plan.
I mean, that's exactly what I was talking.
I don't have a problem with proceeding in that fashion.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
So you're okay with keeping everything as is then?
I'll redo that Appropriations Act, the budget rules. Like I said, there may be a couple language changes that I think we're going to need because for example, just describing them as activity centers. I don't have them in front of me, so I can't tell you that there needs to be, I think, a more accurate description of how we are actually enacting the budget. Because you, again, have not enacted a budget line item. You never have. And as far back as I've looked, you've never adopted a line item budget. You've adopted it at the very least a fund level budget.
We might be able to better appreciate those types of, those types of, I don't know the word for it. Anyways, we might be able to better appreciate the process and be able to better communicate and participate in the discussion now as opposed to 6 months ago. I will be. I'm not talking on behalf of anybody else. I personally.
If we can get by the content of the appropriations ordinance and the budget, or excuse me, appropriations resolution and the budget rules, we can just move to the substance of the budget, which is what I think we're really intending to deal with today primarily.
Right on board with that, Mr. Wessel?
I just don't want us to think that we've rushed the process. I feel very good about the process we've gone through. And that's the first time that I've been here that we didn't have a deficit budget. We've got a balanced budget. We have very little disagreement amongst us on how we're spending our money. And I think we ought to applaud what we've done. And I don't want the administrator or Kathy to think that we don't.
They've been the ones that have done it.
And it's appreciated. This is very helpful.
So I, oh, this is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That was basically Kathy with a little bit of, my encouragement as to how I think that ought to look. She did it all by herself.
Okay.
Mr. Money?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying we rushed through the budget. I think that we've really gone through that thoroughly. But I'm just talking about the appropriation and budget rules. So, I mean, if we're, I just wanted to review, I passed this out, review the budget decisions. A couple of them that we've made, and I passed out this piece of paper. It said, in reviewing the 2026 county budget decisions, I'm not in favor of the LAC secretary increasing her wages to a higher level and the proposed 4.5% raise for probate. And I think we got an example here of by doing this individually, what happens and what we're encouraging. I said, I want to know, did we negotiate with the unions in good faith? Did this board negotiate in good faith? I said, one of our commissioners interviewed the LEC secretary. Interviewing this union employee or any employee for raises is an obvious example of micromanaging county employees. I mean, was our administrator directed by this board to negotiate with probate court? I mean, did not the board agree to a 3% raise for all 2026 employees? I mean, how does this decision to negotiate with employees after union contracts have been signed reflect on the board of commissioners? And how will a 4.5% for probate employees impact current negotiations and the Me Too clauses in our contracts? And I just think that
Let me
we're not
address,
thinking about
let
those
me
things.
address that issue. Because we are not giving an across the board 4.5% increase to probate court employees. We're not doing that. That is an inaccurate description.
I'm not talking about that as the thing. What I'm saying is that we're negotiating right now with the deputies. If the deputies demand a 4.5% increase, there is a Me Too clause in there. And that will affect every one of the other ones, is what I think. And maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's what I believe could happen. And so we would be going back, and this year, or 2026, we would be giving all the employees, all the union employees, a 4.5% if we pass that Me Too.
That's what I was trying to address.
Okay.
The Me Too clauses only apply, first of all, they don't apply to department heads. Okay. They only apply when there's an across the board increase in a particular unit of the county. The probate court, number one, the probate court is not the unit of the county, it is the court. So a separate negotiation with them is not only not uncalled for, but actually appropriate. The raises that
Not appropriate.
the raises that their clerical employees are receiving are not based on 4%. They're receiving 3%, just like all other employees. But the difference is they're getting the additional hours that everybody else got a year or so ago that they did not receive. That's the increase they're getting. They're actually being treated exactly like the union employees were when they received increases in their hours. Their actual rate of increase is still limited to 3%. For probate social workers, probation officers are not getting, they're getting the 3% raise as well. They're also getting an additional hours, and they're being moved to exempt status under the Fair Labor Standards Act, which the union employees are not. So again, this is a completely different situation than you're presented with. It would not trigger the Me Too clause in any of the union contracts. The only employees that are getting a 4.5% raise are the two department heads, the probate court register and the family court administrator. They're getting a 4.5% raise. As you recall, the judge asked for a 9% raise, and then agreed during discussions with him that whether I was authorized to do that or not, I had several commissioners ask me if I would approach him to see if there was any flexibility in his request, and he agreed to implement a 9% raise over 2 years, which I reported to you in another context. So the only employees that are getting a 4% raise over their salary are the 2 department heads. That also does not trigger the B2 clause in any of the union contracts. So the notion that we're giving an across the board 4.5% raise to the probate court employees is just not accurate. So
that makes it okay.
Well,
Does that make it okay with this board that we negotiated 3% and we're giving special employees 4.5?
well, did we give every other employee 5 more hours?
a year ago,
We're giving
A year
some-
ago.
Yes.
Oh, now we're giving it to them. So that's apples to apples. That's not apples to apples. That's bringing them up to the same standard as the others, because they didn't get that raise. They only worked 35. Now they're working 40.
So you
Right.
actually think it's okay?
Well, yeah,
All right.
I think we're
Well, I don't. That's all I'm saying.
overthinking. I think.
Yet the other thing that is important to mention with respect to court employees is, again, I've said this several times already in other meetings. The court is a separate unit, as I think everyone agrees. And the Supreme Court rule regarding the resolution of disputes with a court unit, again, requires first mediation and then potentially litigation. And a court is permitted to spend its budget within its appropriation. And this is where the difference between an appropriation and an allocation is extremely important. They're permitted to spend their budget as they see fit within their appropriation. Your degree of control is to reduce their appropriation, not to tell them they can't give their employees a wage that they believe is necessary to maintain and to attract and retain employees. So and as I've said several times already, the last thing I think you want to do is get into a budget dispute with your courts. I've never seen that go well for a county, and I've represented several of them.
But I think
They were involved in those disputes.
I think if we give all of ours 3% and we give them 3%, there's not going to be any dispute. If we start giving them 4%, then this is the kind of thing that happens when we give the L&T secretary an extra level. We're going to have other people come in and ask for different things again, and we'll start getting, we're not following in good faith what we negotiate. That's the biggest problem I have with this. We're undermining our own selves when we do these types of things.
Well, as I said, with respect to every one of the probate court employees, other than the 2 department heads, they are being treated exactly the same as any other union employee. And I hate to dispute that in such emphatic terms, but that is what's happening.
I'm fine with this, the ones we're treating that. It's the ones we're not treating the same. Whether it's the secretary at the LEC or it's the heads of certain people at probate. We're picking out certain people and giving them, to me, we're undermining what we've negotiated with everybody else. And I think that's a mistake. For the whole board, not just, and for all the employees.
Commissioner Campbell?
I think this is what happens when communication gets jumbled, and I can't blame the media for reporting what was said. But I can say that when this was presented to us, it was presented to us as a 4.5% raise. if it would have been presented to us as more hours plus a 3% raise, this whole building might be less in a turmoil over it. So once that cat's out of the bag, it's hard to put it back. But if that's how it would have been presented to us, we would have probably not been jumping up and down, and this whole thing would have gone away. Now, the 4.5%, which I appreciate you bringing up, Mr. Dyer, to the folks on the upper level, that to me is a little different subject. And yeah, you can say that might have been a little over the top, although we're now in a position where we're looking at all of our department heads as far as salary. And maybe that comes out, who knows how that comes out, I'm not gonna speculate on it. But I just think that it was presented poorly. And it didn't get corrected, and maybe today we can correct it so folks will understand that it was more hours with a 3% raise.
I don't have control over how a department head or other unit of the county, excuse me, a state entity presents its budget request. I don't have any control.
Mr. Wesson?
Yeah, if we're done with that topic. Your third bullet, Mr. Bunny, I am that commissioner who, I wouldn't say interviewed, but came at the invitation of a staff member to correct something I had said at this table. Before I met with her, I made sure that her supervisor knew that I was doing that. I made no commitment to her. I listened to her talk about her job and her position, and I considered that, and the first public comment I made about that was when we met as a board. It's certainly not micromanaging, and I would challenge you if talking to staff is micromanaging, we probably both do it.
No, my point is that she's a union employee, and we negotiated with the unions.
I wasn't negotiating with her. What negotiating with her?
We negotiated with, you negotiated with the unions. If this was gonna happen, that should have been brought up in the union negotiations, not at this board. So that's why I call it micromanaging, because you're going outside of the unions to raise the level of a union employee without it being requested by the union.
But I think you have to look at the sheriff's one brought that here, it wasn't the employee, and yeah, so pay rate goes
It
with.
wasn't the union.
Uh,
It was not the union.
But it was the sheriff.
All right, and that's where it should
It
come
was
from.
the sheriff.
Well,
And granted, it is a pay raise, but at the end of the day, it was a reclassification that came with pay raise.
she became an executive secretary as opposed to a secretary, which is a different level in that type of environment. Because they have access to different levels of information. Okay, that's, because they get involved in investigations, they get involved in things that are not general duties of other staff. So that it is reclassified as an executive secretary. It's water under the bridge, it's done.
Yeah, it's not one under the bridge. Because we've got deputies, secretaries in every department.
Okay,
So now
and
we can
we've
bring
got
all of those
3 years to the next contract and we'll deal with that.
Not when we do it here individually.
All right, we gotta move on to.
Right, we'll never get down.
I'd like to get into the meat and the bones of what Kathy presented us in front of us and see if, is there anything you want to add, or does anybody have any questions for what she presented or what she has before us?
If I could just walk you through the documents you have.
Yeah.
If you kept them in the order, the first one would be your revenues. And it is 7 pages. And the areas of adjustment since the original proposed is at the direction of the administrator. We reduced the use of fund balance forward, which is the 0 at the far right. We increased property taxes based on data-driven formula, which was discussed with in roundtable, and this equates to 4.75% increase over the 2025 warrant. Then some repeating grants that we rely on are secondary road, marine grant. Register of Deeds agreed to an increase in transfer tax of $50,000. Interest earnings was agreed to go to an additional $225,000. Election reimbursement was agreed to increase by $45,000. The transfer into the general fund from DTR is increased by $275,000. And we'll discuss a potential transfer in from motor pool as we discuss cars. So that was an increase in revenues of about $1 million. And that covers the cost of quite a bit of the items that you all discussed on your worksheets that would impact the general fund specifically.
Have I got the right sheet, this sheet with the dollar?
Let's look at this one next.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the items that I just mentioned are in the far right column, the revenue adjustments. And that's just to show you how revenues were adjusted to be able to afford the expenditures that you wanted to purchase. You have to be balanced. You have to have revenues to support your expenditures. So your total revenue number now is $18,396,425. That is your general fund revenue, which includes transfers in. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, he said and out, so I just want to, it's just
No,
revenue.
just in, it's,
Just in.
this is revenues, so this is just
Okay.
in.
That makes sense.
The next,
Can I ask
Yes,
a question on
yes.
that?
yes,
I believe our last revenue number was $100,000 less than this. I'm a little nervous about the tax revenue, and I say that because the last memo we got from the treasurer, and he was working with Jim on it, but it's been a couple of months. That was $14,179,000. And I don't know by what basis the revenue proposal for property taxes went up, other than our expenses went up. And I'm kind of a fact base, I try to be anyways, and I'm not sure what changed that would change those tax revenues by $100,000 when we were given a pretty thorough explanation of why they should be where they were at our previous estimate.
would you like to address that, Jim?
This has been a substantial discussion with the finance director and the treasurer regarding how we project taxes. In the past, what we've done, for good or not, has been to take the previous year's receipts and simply carry it over to the next year. Despite the fact that over the last 10 years, we've had a minimal anywhere from 2% to 9% increase in actual taxes collected from year to year. that over a 10-year period, I think, I don't have my document in front of me, but my recollection, it was 5.14% annually, compounded annually over that 10-year period. And for the last 4 years since COVID, it was 6 point something. We're proposing the projection based upon actual data, rather than simply saying we're going to duplicate what happened the year before.
I mean, I bought into all that. And that was fine. It was an explanation, but I don't think anything's changed since we got that detailed explanation.
The detailed explanation you got gave a range up to, I don't have it in front of me, but our range is, the amount we're proposing is less than the top level of that range.
So we picked a number that was $100,000 more than a number that was in that range. And than what we had.
Wow. No, than what was last year.
No. Than what was provided by a report from Jim. And my point is, that makes me nervous that we increase it if there's no other data that suggests we could increase it. And I'm more of a conservative kind of guy. And if there's $100,000 that we need to find to make our budget, then just increasing revenue doesn't fit what I like to see in a budget.
The original projection was up to almost $14.9 million in taxes. Alone, be our actual collections. And we're picking a number less than that in an attempt to be somewhat conservative.
Anyways, I don't feel, we had a number that we all agreed with, and now it's $100,000 more, and I don't see that there's any change in facts. So I think we're all concerned about what might happen with the healthcare, and I don't, for lack, I've said my piece. I'm not comfortable, honestly, Jim, and I think you would rather have me tell you that. And I'm just not comfortable by increasing it by 100,000.
Shall I go on?
I just have one question on this sheet here where.
Yeah.
I thought we had approved 12,000 for the LCFCC. 1,000 a month to make sure she got paid, but I didn't know that we had did any more funds. I thought we were gonna go through that later to see about the opioid funds, what we were gonna do with them. That was my understanding of what we had agreed on when she was here and we voted on that part.
My recollection is that we were going to allocate the same amount as had been allocated before. In fact, I think we even approved the contract for that.
Yeah, there's two different allocations for LCFCC.
Right.
There's a $15,000 allocation in the general fund that we roll every year. And then this is opioid settlement funds, 64,000, which is different money. It's the opioid settlement money.
Right.
So we're talking two different pots of money, two different contracts.
So speak on that. What was before us was a contract for 2025, not 2026. And I'm not sure if you received they were also going to provide an explanation by November 1st of how 2024 money was spent, but that's a separate subject. We did not take action on 2026. And there was no proposal before us to do that. But through whatever, something fell through the cracks. And so there was no budget approved or there was no contract approved for 2025 although it was in the budget. I don't think this board has discussed whether to include the same amount of money for, I guess, the same whatever projects were there. But I would not be in favor of that myself, because I believe we should have a discussion about it as a representative from the county government, council of county government, whatever, COG, brought forth.
And I have the same memory. I know we did agree at this table for the part for the 12,000.
The 15,000.
15.
But I thought we were going to, you had even talked to some people and we were going to reach out and get some ideas on both ways.
What direction? And it may end up there. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not, that's not.
Well, and what we could do, because it is a separate fund, it has its own budget and its own revenue from the settlement, is we could put 0 there. And it will just be, or we'll just put $100 so that we can control that budget. And then you can decide who you want to contract with opioid settlement funds, if that's up in the air.
The better thing to do would be to allocate $64,000 as an expenditure, but not indicate. That's part of the problem with budgeting as it's been done in the past. We need that expenditure in there if you're going to have the possibility of awarding it. It doesn't need to be allocated to anyone.
Well, we don't
But
know
it
the
means-
amount though, we, until we receive proposals and we talk to the community, I don't know if it'll be, I mean, we've got what, I'm trying to remember the number that we've got in the bank, it's like 100
I know.
some thousand.
But that's my point is you don't budget at 0 if you know you're going to have an expenditure. You have to at
Well, put
least
$100.
estimate what the Uniform Budgeting Act requires is you estimate what that expenditure is going to be. And if you want to say the estimate is based upon a contract with another entity, that's fine. We could estimate it at 60,000, but setting it at 0 or 100 makes no sense. Because then you're telling people that you think you're going, what you're telling the public is, we don't think we're going to spend any money for that purpose. That's what you're telling the public when you budget for 0 or $100.
That's true.
So
Would you like Kathy to put that in maybe a contingency line in that fund, since that is an expense? And it won't be
shouldn't
under contractual?
contingencies. It's going to be,
I mean, if it's set in there and we don't spend it, we don't hurt our budget.
exactly.
So it doesn't make any difference.
It rolls.
But I don't understand the difference between it. I mean, right now, we could spend $100 easy and decide that we have some long-term plan that won't begin until the following year. So it's not, we're not deceiving the public by putting $100. I think we're more deceiving the public by putting $64,000 if we don't have a clue.
We're not deceiving
much?
anybody.
I agree.
We're realistically
I agree, we're not.
projecting that we may spend this amount or up to this amount. And if we don't spend that amount, then we'll have it to use again next year. It's not deceiving anybody, it's being ready to do that. And being ready to make a decision that we can live with this. We can live with spending that much money. We might not be able to live with spending 65,000, but we can live with spending 60.
That's all you're saying.
That's all we're saying.
How about 50,000? I don't want to put the same amount in because I really don't know, and you want a placeholder. So don't put the exact same amount in because that leaves the impression that we're just going to keep on doing what we're doing. And I don't think that's what we've discussed.
That's a fair comment. Again, the number
No, I agree.
that we used
I
was
agree.
based upon the number that we used last year. And that's a rare instance of where I thought that was a reasonable thing to do.
I can tell you that the opioid settlement worksheet that I looked at, that was provided by the Attorney General, said that the 26 settlement for us is about $50,000. Now, we've received more in the previous years, which is sitting in cash. If you want to make it representative of what we think is going to come in, 50,000. And then you can all decide who you want to spend that with.
Go to that. Yeah, that's fine.
For consensus of 50,000?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Okay, so that being said, your general fund revenue is sitting at $18,396,425. The next document is one of 3 pages. This is what Jim talked about, departmental appropriation. Jim, please correct me if I don't state it correctly. And at the very top of page 1 of 3 is your revenue figure. Again, 18,396,425. Then by department in the general fund, these are your departments line by line, as we have amended them for the negotiated wages, for the contracts that have come about since June, since you first saw your document. And I also have a running list, this document, so that we can kind of talk about all the things that you agreed to. And I can tell you where they're baked in if you want to know that. But we can tell you that all of these items are in this 3-page document.
Yes, and I, not to correct Kathy necessarily, but I just to make it a little clearer. This is really not by department, this is by fund. You're doing allocations by fund, expense allocations by fund, because you'll note some of these, like the prosecuting attorney's department total is about halfway down. That also includes the family support department total, victim service department total. Gets rolled up into the prosecutor's office if you look at just the department itself, correct?
Say that again?
Each department has its own budget.
Yeah, they have their own budget.
Every
No,
single
but
one
the
has
point
it.
I'm making is some departments have multiple funds that make up their budget. So this is not strictly by department.
Yes, it
Yes.
is.
In the general fund.
Yep, the 1 through 3, every single line item has its own budget. Now, if you are thinking of broader categories like legislative, then we would be thinking of the Board of Commissioners, the Attorney, and the Northwest Michigan Council of Governments. You add those first 3 expense departments together, that is your legislative total. And if you want to know what that is, that's on this document. In the middle, where it says legislative, and it's general fund, far left, 1,019,740. That's those first 3 departments added up, and that's legislative.
Are we mandated by accounting, state accounting standards on what goes into each of these categories? I'm looking at the Board of Commissioners Department total,
Yes.
and it's $914,000. And that sounds like a lot. I mean, and I know it encompasses a lot, but is there a better way to depict that so that the public doesn't think we're spending $914,000?
But Ty, you're worth it.
But you,
Wow,
yeah,
you must be getting more per diems than I am.
well, and that's where you get in your line by line. This is the big book. This is your line by line
But
for,
are we, my question was, are we mandated to include that under, because administration or something else might make more sense?
well, I can tell you right now, line by line, that particular line item, $550,000 of it is just wages and hospitalization. So that's a big chunk right there. And then the rest of it is computer charges, building and ground, because we do cost allocation. So we have to we draw money out of that department to fund buildings and grounds and fund IT technology. But a good portion of that line item is your salaries and your wages and your benefits and hospitalization.
If you wanted to for 2027, Kathy could look into, you can break up the Board of Commissioners. There are in the chart of accounts through the budgetary act, I'm sure Mr. Dyer can remind or state all that to you, is that yes, you can have administration, you can have board. If you'd like to see more delineation there, you certainly could. It's forever just been Board of Commissioners.
Just my opinion, that would be.
Is that
easily
correct, Administrator
done.
Dyer? Did I explain that correctly?
Yes, but again, the point that I was trying to make is these are called departments, but they're really funds within the general fund. They're not departments per se, because there are several of these. Again, if you look down, there's the circuit court department total, the circuit court family department total, the friend of the court department total. Those are all components of the circuit court's budget.
Those are all separate departments, though. I
But
guess, yeah, I guess that's okay. Different conversation.
They're really funds within a department.
So
Well, just like,
If you.
Jim and I had that conversation a while back, and I brought up the same issue, and I do think it makes sense to have a separate Board of Commissioners.
Yes.
We can include a coffee in there if we want,
Right.
but it really,
what if we
actually,
all
it's just
drink
not,
coffee?
it's just not accurate, truthfully.
And we can do that in 2027, but the only point I'm trying to make in distinguishing between these being funds and being departments, if you wanted to know how much it costs to, what are the expenses for the sheriff's department, you have to look at a number of these funds in order to know the total amount for the sheriff's department. The same for the circuit court. I know they are different. What I would refer to them as are business units. But the business units then roll up into a department. That's what I would, that's how I would do it. But again, we're talking about making a fundamental change to the budget a week before we're going to approve it. This is still appropriately, it would be appropriate to approve this under the Uniform Budgeting Act. Because you're making appropriations to each of these, we're calling them departments in this document. You're making appropriations to each of those, and that's what you're called to do. All I'm saying is to make it understandable to the public, you would want to roll those up into truly functional business units. As to this is how much it costs to run the circuit court. This is how much it costs to run the sheriff's department.
which is what you'll see on this
Yes.
document on the far right, or far left, excuse me,
And
because
that's,
if you want to look at legislative, I know we just talked about the 1 million. Remembering Board of Commissioners, you employ Jim, and under Jim is your Human Resources Manager and his executive assistant. So there's 3 more people under all 7 of you. The next one is Public Safety, which is all of the sheriff. So if you start with Sheriff Department total and go all the way down to Animal Control, you add all those up, it's 6,492,489. Follow me?
yep,
Then Justice, as Jim was saying, all of the prosecuting attorney, all the way down through probate court, general fund expenditures is $2,976,882. Public records encompasses elections through remonumentation, which is on page 2. We're now going to page 2. 2,761,499. That's your register of deeds, your treasurer, your clerk. You know, this is what falls under public records. Human services will be public health, down through water, I gotta find it, about two-thirds of the way down, water quality. That is, no, that's not right. Human services, I gotta start up here. Human services takes us down through veterans services. Soldiers and sailors, that's where it's at. Down, so it's, excuse me, public health through soldiers and sailors. Then resource management starts with MSU, cooperative, and goes all the way down through water control, water quality. Internal services starts with the finance department and goes down through all the way to the bottom, including budgeted transfers. And then we have our contingency fund. And you'll,
Was that content, wasn't that $300,000 before?
it was, and we did adjust it down to help encompass some of the changes that you all agreed to here. And this is something you have to agree to.
Is that mostly for healthcare?
It was a good portion of it,
100%.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you've got your operating expenses for these, on this form of 16,544,000. If we add in the transfers out to the various funds that need to have money, that would be dispatch, the child care or the child care fund, which is, we have to pay 25%. So that general fund transfers. There are other ones, your indigent defense, you have to fund your county share. The transfers out are $1,852,404. And then at the bottom of your page, you see your revenue of 18,396,000. Your total expenses, 18,396,000, and you have a balanced general fund budget.
Okay.
Can you explain the reduction of fund balance, what that actually means?
Well, if we were going to look at the first proposed budget that you looked at when you first got your book, and it had a $371,000 fund balance forward, that would be a potential reduction of fund balance to balance your budget. So in the general fund column, what Jim really encouraged and what he directed is he wanted a balanced budget without use of fund balance, and that's what we have.
Okay, that's why the zero in the front, and then the special revenue funds are $1.4 million reduction of fund balance. What are those?
In the special funds, when we start the year, we have pots of money that roll and we have to reconstitute them so that they can spend in the subsequent year.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of one in particular that was a big
Early
one.
child.
Special revenue would be anything you took a millage for that's county run, so your senior services and your early childhood would be there.
Yep.
And under property taxes, this is what your first page of your audit looks like that you always study out. That's exactly what this was, it's very, very similar to the first page.
But I don't get the reduction of fund balance as in we're going to spend that much from their fund balance? Is that what that means?
In the funds, that would be like Jen mentioned, early childhood, because we have pots of money
Yeah.
and senior services.
I just didn't think we were spending more than we took in, but I may not be interpreting.
Well,
reduction
and if
of
you'll
fund
notice
balance.
draft on the document, I have a spreadsheet that I'll double check it and we can look at that together if you'd like.
Okay,
But it does balance it,
Okay.
yeah, for the special funds.
The buildings, and do you have building safety in that under special?
That would
Should be
be,
under special revenue, it'd be enterprise. Yeah,
Building
look at
safety
that.
would be the second column from the right, enterprise fund.
Do you have DTR under special revenue fund?
I bet you I do.
That's probably.
Yeah, DTR would be a big one. That's 600. Oh, yeah, that helps me. 600 and some $1,000 because we didn't do the chill tower this year. And we didn't do all of that. We rolled it into fund balance of DTR, so we have to bring it back out to put it into this budget. That was a big one. That's 622,000. So that's a big chunk right there. So if we look at all of your departments and talk about what is baked in to that $18 million figure, we did, as Jim mentioned before, and this is this summary sheet that's just kind of, it's just a working document to try to keep us organized with your spreadsheet that we've worked on, the contractual writer for the Board of Commissioners, the wastewater assessment, the CPR training, then in public safety, and we'll talk about the cars in a bit, but the sheriff's gun platform and ammunition, bit of an increase for capital outlay for tasers and things like that, increase for overtime for the jail, and we reduce the TNT budget. Under justice, I listened to, that was the meeting I missed, so I got the minutes and I realized that the judge had offered to reduce his office supplies and his contractual in the general fund, and that helped offset some of the increase that we've already discussed today. Another thing that is already baked in and we've discussed is the $200,000 to reconstitute the elections department for the gubernatorial. Baked into this proposed budget also is the 5% increase to Leelanau Health Department. We also baked in engineering, pre-engineering costs for the 4 drains to the amount of $50,000. In internal services, Parks and Rec grant writer, Parks and Rec cell phone boosters. We did reduce contingency as we just discussed. And then to cover increase in health insurance in EMS, I had to increase the transfer to the dispatch. I'm sorry, I misspoke. The insurance increase in health insurance for the dispatchers, because we fund that, I had to increase the transfer. Then in dispatch, we're going to do the NICE recorder update, the ArcGIS Pro update under contractual services, and the AED unit replacement pads, and that might be, that's probably more appropriate. And I think it's more in the EMS emergency, but it's $5,000. I know I baked it in. Buildings and grounds was increased by the things you discussed at that last meeting. And then I had to reallocate those costs across the board. Information technology, you've already approved at a previous meeting to move the full-time IT technician starting in 2025. This is the 2026 impact. You agreed to the Dell workstations, Microsoft 365 licensing, Civic Plus software, Adobe, AvePoint for Office 365, and Quest Rapid Recovery. Again, those things were all built into the IT and reallocated to cover the cost of those things. Then we're going to just wait on health insurance. It's a bigger discussion, but let's go to the right-hand column, capital projects. We agreed on the furniture and fixtures for the buildings and grounds department downstairs. We're going to pick up the chill tower again in 26, the wastewater treatment system in 26, and the annual heat pump replacement. We move 150,000 each year. And that's predominantly done by transfers from the DTR. So in total, we've baked all those things in. We took your spreadsheets that you had, the wage increases, the benefits, and that's all reflected in the 18,000,005 that you're looking at. It's quite a feat to get those things in there, and you're only as good as your best day, right? So,
I appreciate it. It's very informative, and just breaking everything down like that really helps.
And that'll also help the preparation of the budget message. All these things will be explained in the budget message. Hope to have that to you by the end of the week, so you have it as part of, you consider it, its content and at the executive meeting. I think we probably should segue to health insurance right now. Unless you have any questions for Kathy.
I just had one, the motor pool to general fund. Does that commit us to leasing vehicles or?
well, this proposal, Jim will go over that. It does help you with your immediate cash need, which is to fund health insurance. And we know that the 4 cars were going to be 250 some thousand, I believe.
Four police vehicles were on average, just a little bit more than 250. They were about 63,000 a piece, including the aftermarket equipment.
So the moving toward the lease cars in 2026 would free up that cash, which has been the selling point that the administrators explained, where instead of spending $256,000 outright and losing that cash, that full, and having an asset, when you have bigger expenditures elsewhere, like your health insurance, it reduces it down to about a $90,000 expenditure for 2026 for those 4 cars, which would be the down payment and 12 payments on each car.
And the down payment is not really a down payment for the purchase of the vehicle, is that they capitalize the aftermarket equipment. The vehicle itself is about 47,000, and the capital aftermarket equipment is about 16,000. We own and retain always the aftermarket equipment. We retain that. That's not leased, but the cost of it is included in the lease cost of the vehicle. So they ask us to pay 50% of that in advance, and then we pay the balance of that over the course of the lease. The lease rate is $1,182 per vehicle as equipped with the aftermarket equipment. Done some analysis of that. The break-even point, when you don't take into consideration resale of the vehicle, is about 4 years. About 4 years out. Break-even point, just a few months short of 4 years. So we need a little bit more information to assure you that the cost of leasing is equivalent to the cost of purchasing. But again, the break-even point appears to be 4 years rather than 5 years, which the original proposal from Enterprise suggested. But a lot of that depends more so not on the cost of acquisition of the vehicles, but the cost, or whatever the resale value is between 5 and a sale at 4 years versus a sale at 5 years. So,
Money?
Yeah, has this leasing been, is that already in the budget then?
we've what you're seeing right now assumes that. Obviously, you may say, no, we're not going to do that. And then we've got some additional work to do. But based upon the cost of, let me. That's why I said moving to health insurance would probably be.
Right, because I mean, that to me, this board has talked about looking more into it, but there's never been, as far as I know, even consensus that we want to go to leasing. I mean, as far as I know, we want to buy them, and we should have it that way into our budget at this time, unless we make a decision. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves if we're putting leasing into this budget at this time, when this board has not even really had a major discussion on it. We've actually asked for more information and have not received any more, other than what we received once. At least that's my understanding.
I asked for bids, and it's probably the biggest contract in the long term, this board will let. And so, yeah, I think, go ahead, because I understand, you had some juggling to do.
Yeah, there is a bid process. That's on a national basis through Sourcewell, which we use as a competitive bidding purchasing group. On a national basis, they identify Enterprise as their preferred vendor for that purpose. And most, if not all, of the counties that have used Enterprise, at least in the northern part of Michigan, have used the Sourcewell RFP process as the basis for their purchase. What we indicated to you, we would provide, and certainly do that by the executive meeting. We've spent much more time than we should have on health insurance. That's been the focus the last 2 weeks, to be honest. And in order to balance the budget with the changes and the increases that we have to do, we would need to lease these vehicles. We'd have a completely different situation if we did not, but that's to be decided. Let me explain a little bit about the health insurance. As I've said for really since I first got here, I thought that the health insurance as we have it constituted was not sustainable. That eventually, if we continue to maintain a $20,000 stop loss, that we would be priced out of the market. And that's happened this year. We, our stop loss premium cost last year was roughly $1,200 per contract. And that's been raised 50% to $1,800 per contract. And that's per contract per month. We had originally budgeted $2 million for health insurance, roughly, for health insurance when we presented the budget to you in June. The stop loss cost alone would exceed $2.1 million at $1,800 per contract. So if we did that, if we continued to budget $2 million, we would have been in bad shape, because the hard cost for the stop loss would have exceeded the budget amount. So we got quotes for various levels of stop loss, and from Blue Cross Blue Shield, we believe, based upon the work that we've done, that a $2.6 million budget amount is reasonable to keep benefits at as close as we possibly can to what we currently offer. We think if we increase the stop loss to $50,000 per contract, that takes the cost down to below what we're paying for stop loss now. It takes the cost down to about $1.1 million. And that, by doing that, that'll give us some ability to at least pay claims in addition to the stop loss. We're also exploring the possibility of another provider. There's an organization called the West Michigan Health Insurance Pool. It's referred to, you've heard it called the pool. That's kind of the name they've taken functions very similar to the way the MMRMA does for liability insurance. They pull their resources together, get a much higher stop loss rate, and get a fully insured contract. We would get a fully insured contract with them. So it would not involve self-insurance at all. We don't know what that's going to be yet. It's only a week ago, 2 weeks ago or so, that I spoke with an individual to get a quote on that. We haven't received it yet. They realize that our budget has to be approved by November 18th. I hope to have something by then. If it's less than $2.6 million, that's probably something that we would opt to use. The advantage of that, again, is it's fully insured, number one. Number two, they also have a provision in the pool that you have to sign up for 3 years. So your current year is fully analyzed with, is fully analyzed through their not their auditors, their
Actuaries.
Their actuaries. Their actuaries give us a fully actuarially determined premium rate. And the second year is determined by contract. Right this year, it would be a 9% increase in the second year. It might be more or slightly less if we join them for 2026, but at least it would be defined. And we would know what it is for the second year, so we can clearly budget for it. In the third year, they do what's called a notching system. That if you are 5% below the 5% below what they project you're going to spend, your rate will go down. If it's within that range, it'll go down like 2.5%. If you're within 0 to 5% less. If you're in 0 to 5% more, it'll go up 3% more than their average amount. So let's say the average amount is 9%. If your rates go up, if your usage goes up between 0 and 5%, you will only go up to 11% rather than the 9% that they would have if you met exactly what they projected you would do. And they have 3 separate tiers. So the most you could go up would be 14%, for example. So you would have a whole lot more certainty if we went into that pool than we have right now, relying on the only certainty we have with the ACS contract now with Cross Blue Shield. The only certainty that we have is how much we'll have to pay for the stop loss. The good news is that the West Michigan pool uses Blue Cross Blue Shield claims maintenance, so it would be absolutely transparent for the employees. It wouldn't. They'd have the same card. They'd use the same doctors and that sort of thing. So again, we don't know where that's going to go. But if we can't move to that system, then we'll have to have the ACS contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield. But I'm reasonably confident that $2.6 million to cover what we would need to pay in both claims costs and the stop loss and administration hard costs that we otherwise have to pay regardless. So that's really our recommendation, is at this point to just adopt $2.6 million for the cost of health insurance. And then we'll be coming, the good news is we have until February before we have to absolutely make a decision, because that's your, well, we don't have till February. That's our year, our month of renewal is February. So sometime around December, just like you did before, you'll have to approve whatever contract you come up with, Blue Cross ACS contract or something other like through the health insurance pool. So that's where we're at. We think you can approve that budget, and we'll we'll be fine either direction that we take. But we don't have a choice to go any less than that.
Yeah. I guess maybe I'm not following this. I wondered where's our insurance, where's Mr. Walter, I wondered. Because I thought he would be here to explain it to us. But,
I don't think you'd hear anything different from him.
well, I mean, my sense is that we're talking difference between $1,200 and $1,800.
Per month, per contract.
Right. And so that would be an exposure of what, about $720,000?
It's about $900,000.
900,000. And if we go to a 50,000 stop loss, we're increasing our, I guess our stop loss by over $2 million.
No, we're not increasing the
Because
stop
if we
loss.
went from
We're
20,000 to 50,000, we
increasing
got
the
100
exposure.
exposures.
Increasing the potential exposure, yes, but not every contract hits $50,000.
No, I know that. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying what we're really increasing our exposure by $2 million just for the stop loss without,
No.
well, at 20,000 is
We're
3
reducing
million. With, with 100 employees, with 50,000, it's 5 million. So I just don't see how you can say it's not that kind of exposure.
Yes, the exposure is definitely there. Right now, you're exposed to a cost of $3.5 million for your health insurance, which includes stop loss and the possibility, if we retain the $20,000 stop loss, Blue Cross Blue Shield projects a $3.5 million cost for us, which is up from, it's a $1 million more than last year.
I agree, but if we go to 50,000, it's even more. The cost and
exposure is more, but the cost is not. Because you reduce the cost of the stop loss by $900,000.
I guess.
What's the stop loss now as compared to what it would be total cost? I'm sorry.
Total cost,
Yeah.
it's $1,220 per contract per month, so that comes up to, I don't remember exactly, it is roughly, you have that, Kathy?
I do.
Andy? I can just figure it out right here. real quick.
There's about 100 enrollees, is that?
Yes, that's the base that we figured.
Oh, of course, I didn't print that one. I've got it.
About $1.4 million.
That sounds about right.
Yes, about $1.4 million is the cost of stop loss.
20,000.
At 20. And that's, if we were to go to
Keep the 20,000, then
keep the 20,000, it goes up to 2.2 or more, a little bit more than $1,800. $1,830. That's about $2.2 million. It's about $800,000, $900,000 is the difference. So the real question is, do we think we're going to have more costs in claims? Because assuming our claims are about the same, we would save about $300,000 moving to a $50,000 stop loss. Because our claims are not going to be any different. The dollar amount of our claims are not going to be any different. We have about $900,000 to pay claims. You understand what I'm saying? The difference between $2.6 million and the stop loss payments would be about $800,000 to $900,000. So if our increase,
currently,
yeah, for
So
the
we-
2026 year,
Oh, okay.
okay. So the question is, will we have more than $800,000 in exposure by increasing the stop loss? We believe there'll be about 20 contracts that will exceed, that will be between 20,000 and 50,000. So that's about another $600,000 in claims.
Right.
Or at least claims that, the claims will stay the same, but those will be claims we'll have to pay rather than Blue Cross Blue Shield. So the point is, the potential increase in exposure based upon our actuarial experience will probably be less than the amount that less than the amount we would save on the stop loss.
We had talked, it had been brought up about possible changes as far as deductibles, things like that.
That we're factoring in, that we're not taking that into consideration right now. But the employees that survey indicating the two things, first of all, that overwhelmingly their preference was no changes at all.
Of course, certainly.
But if there's to be any changes, the preference was a 5-tier drug card plus or both, increasing the deductibles from what are currently 100, 200, just 100 per individual, 200 for a couple or a family, to 500, 1,000. So it would increase the out of pocket somewhat because of that.
Right.
Those are the two favored increases. We haven't looked at that at all yet. We're just trying to get through to make sure we have a sufficient amount of money in the budget to either do an ACS contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield or to proceed to another alternative like the West Michigan pool. So again, we're not asking you to make any decision on that today. What we are asking you to do is to give the thumbs up to a $2.6 million amount budget, because we think that's an optimal amount that will get us one or the other option.
But in essence, we are making a decision today if we go with the 2.6, because that encompasses no change in deductibles and no change in the drug card. I mean, it's just a number. I understand we can change the number, but the number is based on no change today.
Well, I wouldn't say that, because to be honest, I've done a lot of thinking and calculating about this over the last 2 weeks. And honestly, it came as quite a shock that I've been repeatedly assured by our consultant that everything was going to be okay, and it was not that big a deal. That's what, in fact, the last meeting we had with him, he indicated that he thought we had about a 5-year window to fix this. And I responded that I think we have about a 5-week window to fix this.
I'm trying to remember when he presented to us, that would be before your time,
Yes, it was.
Mr. Dyer.
But I was in the
Present
meeting when
this
he
to
did.
to other commissioners. What was his, he wasn't sounding alarms, I didn't think then. I can't, I really honestly, I can't remember. I just don't remember him.
I was in the meeting when and I did hear what he said. His concern was that we were, and he's right. The biggest chunk of claims that we are paying are prescription drug related. And he was saying that something needed to change. And he was proposing a 5-tier drug card back then.
And he also wanted to meet with employees, as I recall.
Right.
Did that happen? Did he meet with employees?
We didn't ask him to. We did the employee survey instead.
Yeah, see, this is what's bothering me, is you're making decisions for us. We're not talking to the, insurance guy, he's not coming here. We're not finding out if the employees are being, educated by Lou, which I thought we had indicated that we wanted to happen. but you're making the decision that it's not happening. So I don't understand. He knows, he's had this thing for 20 years. You've been here 8 months? I think that we need to talk with our insurance man to find out, hey, actually what's happened, as opposed to have it interpreted from him through you. I just think that you're trying to make decisions for us and tell us what we should do, as opposed to us making the decision. I mean, I'm just having a problem with that. I mean, that's the same thing that's happened there with the enterprise. You're making the decision to put it into the budget. We've never made that decision. I just am having a serious problem with you making decisions for us when you're our employee. We're not yours.
We're trying to give you options, and that's what I'm.
I appreciate the options, but it should be our decision whether it goes in the budget or not.
And it still is.
Well, that's what I'm saying. No, you're saying it's already planned to be in it. It's not, we haven't made that decision.
I don't see it as him making the decision. He's given us a recommendation.
No, not when it's in the budget.
It's still a recommendation because we haven't approved it.
Okay.
So it's still our say what we want to do with it, up or down vote. So
Well, I don't
he's given us
like
a
the way it's being
recommendation.
done, I'll tell you that.
Well, with all due respect, I don't like the way it's been done either. I don't like getting assured from our consultant that there's nothing to worry about, and then get a 50% increase in stop loss, and him still saying that there's nothing to worry about.
I don't know. I mean, we're taking your word for it, because I haven't heard that from him.
We can certainly have him here to say that to you.
I would like to, I really would.
What's the next step of this board here with that number? Is everybody comfortable with that number? I need some feedback.
I don't think you have any choice but to approve the
Well,
number.
I think our exposure is an extra 2 million that we're not talking about if we go to 50,000. I mean, yes, it's not gonna be used all, but it could be. That's the whole thing.
Well, then, if you want to retain two $20,000 stop loss, you'll need to allocate $3.5 million rather than 2.6. That's your choice. And those are numbers provided by Mr. Walters, not me.
Well, or we can go with the 5-step program if the
That's not going to save you $1.5 million or $900,000.
I don't know that. I mean, I don't like information being filtered.
Well, what we're doing today is not set in stone,
I agree.
so I would say go with the 2.6. Can we have Mr. Walters here for the next meeting?
Yes, you certainly can.
And then we can make a final decision then. That's good for you?
Yeah.
I mean, all we're asking is to put something in the budget. We're not approving anything.
Right.
That's next February. We'll deal with that, but at least have something in the budget that we can work with to move forward.
Right.
So we're not stuck here and in limbo. And that's what I 100% support, putting at least something in there that we can work with to move forward instead of stalling everything based on something we can't resolve until February.
Right.
I'm comfortable with the 2.6 that we've got here. So I can't think of a better number to use.
Or we could put 300 or 3 million in.
What?
Or we could put 3 million, and pat ourselves on the back about how much money we saved in February. I mean, either way, you know, realistically, we know where the minimum is gonna be that, so let's go with that.
Well, I wish we did know the minimum was gonna be that, but I don't know how you do know. I mean, it isn't, this is the crystal ball business at this point, trying to figure out how many people are gonna be healthy and how many
Right.
people are. It's all actor. You say that, don't you?
Actuary.
That's the one.
Yeah, the one thing that I would say is what you really are, when you do a self-insured program like you're in right now, regardless of what the stop loss that you select would be, what you're protecting against is not the difference, not the number of, you're not protecting against the number of claims that are gonna be between one stop loss number and the other. You're protecting against $1 million claim. That's what you're protecting against when you buy stop loss insurance.
I just want to say it's been a really good program for Leelanau County. We have saved a lot of money.
I don't think you have really.
I believe, well, then we've been, if you will, we've been lied to, because
I wouldn't
that's,
say-
that's what all the reports have always said. And, no, I do believe them. I believe we've saved a ton of money by being in this program, because our numbers are always lower than what neighboring counties, neighboring and businesses were. Now, I don't know what's changed. I do wish there had been a conversation with employees. I don't know if tweaks in the drug use would make a big difference. But I'm not ready to throw this program out, because I know a little bit of the history of it. And it's worked well.
The only way you really know how well it's worked would be to compare what a $50,000 stop loss 20 years ago would have cost versus what a $20,000 stop loss would.
I'm just saying the thought of a stop loss program being self-insured has worked well through the years.
Oh, yeah.
And now, could it have been tweaked one way or the other? I don't know that. I'm just comparing it to what other places have paid, what is taken out of their budgets, and we've done well. I mean, I've been on the board that long, but I think I've been out there covering it, and I believe what was said. I don't think anyone withheld information to stay in the program. I think if there had been a program, we wouldn't be in, or if there had been a problem, we wouldn't be in the program today.
Okay, so we're agreeing on a 2.6
Yeah.
to go forward. All right,
That's
now
as I'm going, so.
now we can beat another horse. What's next?
That's pretty much it, really.
Okay. So Tuesday,
Wednesday,
Wednesday.
yes, sorry.
I'm not coming Tuesday, you can.
What's Wednesday?
The board meeting.
Wednesday's the board meeting, Tuesday's Veterans Day.
Oh. But I didn't show up on Tuesday. You better show up.
Were any other changes made that, you know, we're not having discussed?
Are there any other questions from the board here, I guess, or administrator or finance director?
So the only thing that I do here is the opioid settlement. It's a fund, just to put the contractual line item at 50,000, and you'll decide who has that contract later.
Right.
Okay, so got it. And then I think we've touched on all of the things that are baked in here. It's balanced. This would be viewed as the proposed to adopt by the public starting Monday, I think. It'd go on the website, and a hard copy would be available in the administrator's office. And what I also heard is appropriations and budget rules. They also have to be viewed, so you know.
And what we'll do is also indicate with respect to the vehicle leasing, is we will we'll present a budget alternative that will show the purchasing the vehicles as an alternative to leasing, with fund balance used to fund that, or the difference between leasing and purchasing. So you can have a straight up and down vote on whether you want to go with a program that leases vehicles or outright purchasing.
On that basis, I know you got 4 patrol cars, but apparently we talked.
There was also going to be a fifth purchase.
So pickup truck, yeah, okay.
But that would, the building and safety is in a special fund, correct?
Correct.
And that's why we were discussing only that, how it impacted the general fund, it'll have the same a similar impact if we lease on the building safety, but that's less significant. And it didn't impact the issue of potentially funding the increase in insurance costs.
And I thought it was only 3 cars.
We're gonna get four.
There was 4 possible, but I thought we were only gonna get 3.
We went from
The
5
original proposal was 4,
in the truck.
4 plus the truck. That was the original
We
proposal.
got rid of the team, the team.
And on the one, can you answer, okay, for the family court judge's salary? I think you got, what, 138? It's on page 2.
Is the revenue, that's the reimbursement from the
That's
state.
okay.
That's a revenue,
That's revenue.
that's a revenue figure.
Yeah, that's the portion that we get.
Any other questions?
In the previous meeting, which lasted over 2.5 hours without my presence.
Just think how long it would have been if you were here.
Oh my God, this is where we're talking about veterans up in the back.
My colleague, Mr. Russell, brought up the overtime question again, and I don't know if there's been anything within budget discussions beyond that as far as, is there an opportunity to reduce our budget as far as the amount that has been set aside for overtime, considering the increase in hours that have been already approved?
The overtime is all in the sheriff's department. It wasn't from-
Oops, just throughout.
Well, throughout, but the only department that incurs that is that, and in the election, when we have an election, we're not gonna get away from not having overtime next year. Because we got an election.
Well, there's some overtime in a lot of departments. So that's my question. Is that just trying to send a message, because a lot of it isn't used, I understand. But I was encouraged by your words, because I thought that too.
What I'm passing out here is, and we didn't put anything into the budget, but we were requested to look at the cost of increases to elected officials and their deputies. So I'm giving you the proposed non-union wage schedule and the analysis of costs for a 3% increase, a 5% increase, and a 10% increase.
3% is what's baked in now.
3% is there now.
And then this proposed wage schedule, I do have to amend it for the action you took today for the assistant prosecutor's position.
Right.
I just will put that new number in there.
So you want me to yank that dead horse named overtime out of the?
If you can give me a summary of how we can avoid overtime, I'd be amazed.
You're an amazing person.
Because overtime is contingent on that emergency that causes it.
Well, there should be fewer emergencies. and people
Well,
are
there
working
there
5
could be
extra
unless we got a
hours
snowstorm,
already.
or a hurricane or something. I mean, overtime's a contingency of that fatal accident on M72 that causes the officers to stay there 4 hours past the end of their shift.
So it didn't affect police officers, so I'm sorry,
Right, but I mean,
the
that's
extra 5
pretty
hours.
much, yeah. it's
I'm
5
talking
hours.
about within our staffs, within our union
Well,
staffs.
then, the only other overtime that I can really foresee is your election.
Right.
Okay, and we're
So
not
can
gonna
we
get around
eliminate,
that.
can we eliminate it in other departments then?
Mail-in voting. Well,
It could be a court goes over.
could be quick goes overtime,
But then-
but it's,
They're
you
doing
know,
extra 5 hours too?
it's, most departments aren't gonna have that, I mean. Should we have overtime in the treasurer's office?
There is no overtime in the treasurer's
There
office.
is no-
Right, so, okay, so that's a, no, so we solved that problem, then, didn't we?
Well, I mean,
Anything else that we see out there for overtime, we know it's gonna be there, because we know traditionally, historically, that's where it comes from, and we cannot change it.
You talking about the sheriff's department?
I'm talking about the sheriff's department, I'm talking about elections, I'm talking, the clerk's office. Those departments that incur overtime are historically going to incur overtime, and we cannot get around that. So you gotta budget for it, because it's not going to go away. Unless you go to an all-volunteer clerk's office.
It should go down though. It should go down.
Well, it should go down if we get more efficient, but you're not gonna get rid of it.
Does 5 hours make you any more efficient?
Well,
Does
that
5 more
5
hours a week make you any more?
that 5 hours in the election day.
And if you use the clerk's office in the court, they don't control how long the judge wants that trial to go after 5 o'clock.
Right, yeah, I mean, you're beating a dead
I
horse.
mean, you gotta have somebody there.
I mean, all out of the room.
Give them a couple years.
So I am.
Then figure it out.
I mean, I think what we gotta do
I'll
is.
volunteer.
All right, you
I
gotta
bet
move
that
that.
horse last week.
Any other questions for our finance director? Anything you wanna add, Ken?
No.
All good? All right, for that, we're on to public comment. Have any commissioner comments?
You don't wanna hear me.
Any commissioner comments? Commissioner Wessel?
I had three things I wanted to mention. First, I feel good about the budget process. Kathy, thank you. Jim, thank you. I feel like we've done it well. But I wanted to mention, in case Steve forgets to, about the PC event on Wednesday. You know, I keep talking about the county role in housing. And the planning commission has got a workshop downstairs on Wednesday. Maybe Steve can speak to that, but it would be nice to, if we don't think that the county has a role, we ought to go there and listen, because the county does have a role. And the third thing is, I did pick up donuts for Halloween, and if you had $10 a piece, that would defray the $80 cost.
So you said you picked them up.
And pay for it.
I wouldn't got. The checks in the mail. On this report, somehow I thought that there was gonna be a comparison with other counties. Did I misinterpret what was the request? No?
Where are we at?
That was the request.
Information, or are we gonna be discussing it?
Up to you.
I mean, we just gave upstairs, the administrator. And that position is filled to under sheriff, chief deputy, or, so we just opened our can of worms.
We should discuss it, yes, absolutely.
If you go over 3, then you better have a reason, as in, you better have a study or something of that nature, rather than just say, well, gee, they did a nice job, because you could say that about anybody in here.
Yeah, I'm not real satisfied with how we did this budget. I really feel in the end here, we've undermined our own authority as a commission, and we defeated what we tried to negotiate by saying that you just gotta come before us and we'll give you a raise. I'm just really disappointed with that. I also wonder how many people here learned today or knew ahead of time that there's someone leaving the finance department. Did anybody else heard that? So I just learned that. Yeah, and I mean, I think that that's something that should be communicated to all commissioners, not just certain ones. I don't think I should know it, and none of you know it. So I think that's really, I would say that's the administrators. You should get an email or something out to us to let all of us know. It shouldn't just be found out for the chairman or for me or for anybody else without the rest of the commissioners knowing
I was
that.
planning to do that.
So when things happen here, I do think that there is a responsibility on the administrators' part to let us know. You know, and maybe it would have been in your notes, but but we weren't able to get that done this week, which I understand. So,
Exactly correct.
so I would appreciate that.
You asked a question, just because we had met on healthcare, I learned about it then, but I agree, especially if it's I believe the title is deputy treasurer, chief deputy treasurer, that's an important position for this county.
Assistant finance
What
director.
I say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Treasurer.
That's assistant finance director.
I never have to worry about correcting myself here. Anyways.
Because
Anyways, that's a very
what
important
you said.
position, Kathy.
I'm sorry.
Very important position. So I'm a little concerned about your department, not because you're not qualified or not because you're not working your butt off. But it's hard to go, it's hard to get work done if you don't have people to get work done. So just want you to know that we understand you're probably working, you already working a lot, so we appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm just noticing, public notice for the budget is on a schedule for November 4th, but there's a legal number of days it has to be available for public. Is it 7 or 8?
I want to say 6.
So we can still hit Monday. I think it's written somewhere November 4th, which is tomorrow. So I just want to make sure we're legal with the public viewing. Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Kathy, I want to thank you for your work on this budget as well. Like, this wasn't an easy job, and appreciate everything you did in putting everything together. I know with this board, you had a lot of requests and you kept swirling, so I appreciate that and keeping up with the demand and everything. Administrator and everything you did as well, so hats off to you guys, and hopefully we'll get this through the finish line in a couple weeks here and move on. So
I will.
appreciate it.
I will say that you're right. It's not the way we've always done a budget. It's different. But it doesn't mean it wasn't effectual. And, there are different ways to do things. We hired a different administrator, so we're going through a different process. Slightly changed, the end goal is all the same. So, I feel that each of us had our ability to put our input in. And we all have the ability to approve it or disapprove it. When we come to it. It is not the same process that we've always gone through, but there's always change with different administrations. We've got a different way of doing things. And we don't know if that's good or bad yet. In a year we can evaluate and say, well, maybe we shouldn't have done it that way. But we have a budget, and that's the plan.
Rollins?
I have to agree with Mark. When we started August 19th, we started this budget. No, we all didn't see eye to eye. We're a new team, new coach. Got Kathy on board, but I just look at where we've come the last couple of weeks. I'm starting to see us, we're coming together as a team. And next year, it's probably going to be a lot different. And we got to remember, we're here for 3 more years. So we can make a difference. And thank you, Kathy. And, let's just be patient, and we're learning it together as we move on.
Just one comment that I would make. I agree. I think this has been an interesting process. I think it's been a good one. I understand the criticisms. I think the one thing that I would do differently is change the rules for your budget work sessions to allow you to vote on individual items and actually have a straight up and down vote. Do we want to do this or we don't want to do this, rather than a consensus? It's either going to be in the budget or it's not, based upon a vote made at one of your budget work sessions for some of the more significant items. So there's no question and a record that yes, this is going to be in the budget, or no, this is not. That'd be the only change that I would make to what we've done so far. You do learn as you go through a process like this.
Keep going here. Okay. Final one.
Um, I appreciate Mr. Dyer when there was, when there are the rules, understanding that, realizing that, and agreeing to split that decision. I think that I think that avoided, what probably would have been a mixed vote, and I think that's a better way to handle it. And I do believe that what we heard from the professor, if you will, was she laid out a system that was different than what we did. She laid out a system where we start as a board with formulating our priorities, and that never happened. I think that caused a lot of fumbling along the way. So, and I've talked to Jim about this, and he agrees that starting earlier and going through the process once will allow us to do that, to establish, so that we're not receiving all of the budget requests before we lay out our priorities as far as what we have for resources and how we envision them being allocated. So that would be my change, is that we get ourselves together before we ask other folks to get together. Other than that, we met a lot, we learned a lot, and the end result, I think, was very positive.
All right, Alan's the last word.